Good morning, and a heart-filled welcome to Emerson. My name is Helen Hobson, and I'm a worship associate, as well as the ministry associate for our Justice Ministries. I would like to offer a very special welcome to those of you who are joining us here online for our service for the first time. We hope that you will find nourishment in your heart and mind by our worship together today. As a Unitarian Universalist congregation, we explore a wide variety of spiritual and theological beliefs and traditions. We honor the inherent worth and dignity of every person. You are welcome here. Today, in both our service and our second hour activity, which is our annual congregational meeting, we will be exercising our fifth principle, which is the use of conscience and the democratic process in our congregations and in the world at large. Normally, we would invite you to our second hour activities that start at 11:15, which are small groups of children, youth, and adults that meet to explore a topic in more depth. And it's a wonderful way to get to know people better. And in a spirit of beloved community, welcome to Emerson.
Where are we? A house, a home, a street, a neighborhood? Who are we? People, individuals, villains, heroes? What are we? Fake, real, void, living? Why are we? To hate, to love, to fight, to laugh. We are.
Good morning, dear Emerson family and friends and guests far and near. My name is Reverend Deborah Bennett, and it is my joy to serve as the called minister here at Emerson. Of course, I use the word here in general terms, as I am once again coming to you from my home. I hope you each are continuing to make safe choices as we enter into this third month of our physical distancing and worshiping from afar. We may not be with each other in person, but the connections we continue to nourish during this time will help us sustain us and help serve us as we move forward together. Speaking of the future, today we address a very vital topic: civic engagement and our role as Unitarian Universalists to engage with our political world. I open with these words from the UUA Organizing Strategy Director, Reverend Ashley Horan. We say it again and again, even when the proof lies somewhere beyond the horizon, beyond our reach, beyond our imagination. This is our faith. Another world is possible. Not somewhere else, not in another world, another lifetime, but right here and now, for us and for all. Another world is possible. There is no single path toward that world, no one strategy or approach that will restore balance, heal brokenness, sow wholeness, free creation. There are many routes towards liberation, towards freedom, but the abundance of opinions and options does not absolve us from the responsibility of acting. Another world is possible. The call, the duty of each moment in history is to discern. Another world is possible. Who are we, and what can we bring with humility, integrity, faith? What is the context, and how can we address it with agility, resilience, and skill? What is the vision, and how can we realize it with accountability, relationship, and joy? Another world is possible. In this time of despair, in this time of fear and collapse, this time that is both like every other time and no other time in history, it is audacious to declare our faith and to commit our work to a world that is more free, more just, and more whole. but we are an audacious people in good company with many kin. And we are ready to show up and to work hard and to stay humble and to make friends and to hold the vision starting here, starting now, starting today with us and persevering, however long it takes, until that world is not only possible, but another world is here. Welcome. Please rise now if you would like in your homes, and rise your voices and join us in our opening hymn.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Beth Kline, and I serve Emerson as your Director of Religious Education for Children and Youth. I'm also a member of Emerson's Pastoral Care Team. The Pastoral Care Team members are available as listening ears to support you during challenging times. You can always contact us at our email address, pastoralcare@emersonuu.org. And pastoral care is spelled PASTORAL, care, C-A-R-E, one word, pastoral care. At this time in our service, we pause to share the personal joys and sorrows of our Emerson community. One of the ways that we stay connected as a community of faith is sharing events that are truly wonderful and those that are heavy burdens on our heart. Both of these shape our lives. As I share today's joys and sorrows, I'll light a candle for each one. Each Sunday, we also light our vigil bowl, and I'm here with it now. The vigil bowl's light represents the light of hope for peaceful resolutions of all conflicts on our planet, and it honors all dedicated people who serve us, including those who are involved with essential duties with the COVID-19 battle. Today I share these joys and sorrows with you. First, a sorrow from Eva Cronin and her family. Eva's aunt, Ann Harmon, died of COVID-19 related illness recently in Virginia. She was much loved by her family and friends. She was an amazing quilter and a gentle soul. She'll be greatly missed. Also a note because of the week of Memorial Day. It was an especially solemn holiday this year, honoring the U.S. veterans who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country and for our freedoms. Let us always remember them and their families. Now we know that there are joys and sorrows left unspoken today. As I light candles for them, please feel free to speak aloud the name of anyone you're holding close in your heart this morning. Let us send our heartfelt intentions to all people, everywhere, by offering the Buddhist prayer of loving kindness. The words are projected here on your screen and also printed in your order of service. Please join me. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May they be free from harm and suffering. May they be well in body, heart, and mind. May they be at peace.
Good morning. My name is Jillian Scow, and I have a story for all ages. And it may be that you've heard this one before. It's based on a story by Lorne Isley. And it tells about a person walking down a beach on a very particular kind of day. There'd just been a storm, and the beach is crowded with starfish that have been washed up on the sand and are now stranded there by the tide that's gone out. And as the person walks along on the beach on this morning, there's another person, a child, coming in the other direction down the beach. And every so often the child bends over and picks up something and throws it into the waves. As the child gets closer, it becomes obvious that it's the starfish that this child is tossing into the waves. And so as they come close to each other and say good morning, the stranger can't help but ask the child, "What are you doing?" "Well," the child says, "I'm saving the starfish. If they stay out here in the hot sun, they'll surely die." "Oh, but don't you know? There are miles and miles of beach and thousands of starfish. It can't possibly make a difference." And the child bends down, picks up a starfish, throws it into the ocean, and then turns back and says with a smile, "Well, it made a difference to that one." Please join us in the song of dedication.
Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship. Thus do we covenant with each other. Thus do we promise to each other.
Please join me now in a time of meditation. Find that place in your home or wherever you are that feels comfortable and yet helps you remain alert. And if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, please do so, or have soft eyes where the eyes are starting to let go of the external and draw the focus inward. This is our time to take a pause. That place between action and action contains a pause, even so briefly. And the more we bring attention to that moment, the more we're able to rest there. And the same is true with our breath. Between inhale and exhale, there's a natural pause. So as you begin to sit today, allowing the breath to come in, see if you can identify that place of pause. That place between the inhale and the exhale. The place at the bottom of the exhale before the inhale comes in again. In this place of pause, let us turn our focus towards that which is more subtle than the big movements. Let us turn our attention to that web of existence that binds all of us, that lives inside of these subtle places. Let us turn our attention to that silence in which lives the holiest of holy. And let us pray together this morning. Spirit of life, who draws us together in a web of holy relationship. Make your presence known with us and in us and among us. Remind us that we are not alone in history. Ignite us with the courage of the living tradition. Remind us that we are not alone in entering the future. Anchor us in patience and perseverance. Remind us that we are not alone in our times of grief and pain. Comfort us with spirit, manifest in human hands and voices. Remind us that we are not alone in joy and wonder. Inspire us to honor and extend the beauty we find in this world. Divine music of the universe, let our hearts beat in diverse and harmonious rhythms, cooperating with an everlasting dance of love. May we move with the rhythms of peace. May we move with the rhythms of compassion. And may we move with the rhythms of justice. Source of stars and planets and water and land, open our hearts to all of our neighbors. Open our souls to a renewal of faith. Open our hands to join together in the work ahead. So may it be, and blessed be. Amen. Taking another deep breath into your body, feeling this space of the holy inside of you, that which moves you inside and draws you out. And as you are ready, let the next inhale open your eyes and join us even deeper into this time of worship. Thank you, James. What a beautiful rendition of this classic piece. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesty above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Most of us grew up knowing the words to that song, at least that first verse. The words were first created as a poem by a school teacher, inspired by a journey she took to Pikes Peak during the summer of 1893. Catherine Lee Bates said that her and a few other teachers decided to go on the trip to the 14,000-foot peak. They hired a prairie wagon, but near the top they had to leave the wagon and go the rest of the way by mules. She said she was very tired by the time they arrived to the top, but when she saw the view, she felt great joy. She felt like she was seeing all the wonder of America displayed there, with the sea-like expanse. America the beautiful. And it's true. Though few of us will be traveling this summer, or at least will be keeping our traveling more moderate, a journey across this nation reveals many exquisitely beautiful landscapes. It is the image most promoted as America by our government. But I must admit that I have many misgivings about this song and its verses that include things like pilgrim's feet in the wilderness and a call for God to mend thy every flaw. Theologically speaking, as a spiritual non-theist, I struggle with the call to God to do the heavy lifting and the proclamation of his grace as the source of the beauty. As if this beauty were a sign that the divine was somehow pleased with the American people and thus bestowed upon us a gift. Someday we're going to have a service talking about this idea of grace and going to explore it more in depth, because I imagine our Unitarian Universalist setting will not be short on engagement in this topic. But I think my dad captured some of my own struggles with this concept of grace that is often promoted by theology. I was about 18 or 19 at the time, and I remember walking into the house one Sunday afternoon. As I entered the house, I heard my dad's voice calling me from the family room, and I found him there gazing at the TV with that look he would get sometimes when he was witnessing a human condition that he would claim truly bewildering. I could tell it was one of these instances because of the puzzled look on his face and the fact that at these moments they usually began with the phrase, "Explain something to me." By this, he usually meant that he wanted me to be the voice of the entire population, or at least the ones doing whatever it was that was puzzling him at the moment. "So explain this to me," he began. "The football game just ended. One team lost, the other won." He paused, waiting for my affirmation to these stated facts. "Yes, Dad." Dad loves to draw out the setup at these times and uses the pregnant pause effectively to capture his audience's attention. "So the reporters go into the winning team's locker room," he goes on, pausing again. "And all the players are thanking God and praising God and saying that it was God's grace and how God was with them." Again, he pauses, accompanied by the head tilt, kind of like the one your dog gives you, wondering what strange joy you might be getting by waving that treat in front of his nose and not just giving it to him. Anyway, so with the tilt, my dad says, "So I'm confused. And here comes that which I am supposed to explain." He says, "What about the poor guys in the other locker room? You mean God wasn't with them just because they lost? God's only with the winners?" Good question, Dad. So back to the song and my theological challenge with it. Is God's grace only in the Purple Mountain's majesty? And if so, what about the places that are not so full of amber fields of grain? By my reckoning, it seems that if there is a God, he would be most needed not in the fruited plains, but in the city streets, in the darkness of the detention centers, in the prisons filled with Black and immigrant bodies arrested for living while poor, in communities weighed down by poverty and addiction. God, shed your grace on these. But this is not a sermon about grace, necessarily, so let's move on to my point of the day. If not God, then who? Who is responsible for the grace that is needed to create the just, compassionate, peaceful world we long for? Who is responsible for providing comfort to those that do not win? And who is responsible for making sure the playing field is fair? One of my best friends, born in Italy and raised in Canada, just became a U.S. citizen. To do so, she had to pass a test. Those applying for U.S. citizenship must pass a naturalization test, as it is called, which includes knowing the answer to about 100 questions, or at least knowing the answer to the 6 out of 10 of those multiple choice questions that they will be asked at their interview. Now, the questions include those about how our democracy works, or at least how it's supposed to work, and U.S. history. My friend studied and passed, and as she was telling me this, I got to thinking, how many American citizens born in this country could pass the same test? Well, it turns out that more than one group has studied this question, and the results aren't good. In 2018, a survey released by the Woodrow Wilson National Fellowship Foundation revealed some startling statistics. 2/3 of the people who are natural-born U.S. citizens who took the test failed. 60% of the people did not know which countries America fought during World War II. More than half did not know how many justices are on the Supreme Court. Do you? And only 24% knew why the colonists fought the British. And while most knew the cause of the Cold War, 2% thought it was climate change. Really? People aged 45 and younger did the worst. Only 19% passed the exam, and passing only required 60% correct. Only 19% passed. Now, if you're interested, you can Google the quiz offered by CNN, which is like the one offered in the test. You can see how you do. But this isn't just about being able to pass a test. The truth is, these results scare me. And they should scare all of us. A 2016 survey by the Annenberg Public Policy Center found that only 26% of Americans can name all 3 branches of government. And that public trust in government is at only 18%. And voter participation has reached some of its lowest points since the 90s. Without an understanding of the structure of government, our rights and responsibilities, and the different methods of public engagement, voter apathy will surely continue to plague American democracy. Now, some say that educators and schools have a unique opportunity and responsibility to ensure that young people become engaged and knowledgeable citizens. And I agree with that sentiment. But I also think we're kidding ourselves if we think that a few extra civics classes in high school is going to change our society. Education cannot be limited to what we offer our youth in school, years before they ever get to fill in their first ballot. These surveys show that despite the fact that most of us have taken some level of civics class in school, we are woefully unaware of how this huge political machine is supposed to work. And we are woefully ill-equipped to wrestle it out of the hands of those who seek to control it for personal gain. Franklin Roosevelt famously said, "Democracy cannot succeed unless those who express their choice are prepared to choose wisely." The real safeguard of democracy, therefore, is education. What is the education that is needed? I argue that while keeping and knowing some of the facts about history and branches of government are definitely important, as important is knowing how to engage and being willing to engage. Civics education should not be merely about facts, but about how to come together to ensure that the government is operating with liberty and justice for all. As retired Supreme Court Judge Sandra Day O'Connor states, statistics show that there's a very strong correlation between ignorance and distrust of our government. Civics is about teaching students that one person can ignite political fires on the ground and that those fires are almost always begun with a very small spark. And we cannot wait until all those in school now are adults and initiate change. Time is of the essence now. Time is of the essence now, and unfortunately, it is too late for some. Why does civic literacy and action matter? Well, I'll answer that starting with two names: Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd. Ahmaud Arbery, as you know, I'm hoping that you definitely know, was chased down and killed as he was jogging on February 23rd, close by in Brunswick, Georgia. And though the killers were known, it took local officials and state government over 2 months to arrest the men responsible. Explain something to me. How is it that elected officials did not call for the perpetrator's arrest immediately? On Tuesday, I watched the 10-minute true horror video. The eerie footage was taken the day before on Monday and showed a white Minneapolis policeman with his knee pressing down on the throat of George Floyd, an unarmed black man. As a local person recorded the scene, George Floyd lay on the ground repeating the words, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." The echo of Eric Gardner's voice was coming through, yet another black man being strangled by white brutality. The officer clearly had his knee in the man's throat for a full 8 minutes, the last of which saw the man silent and unresponsive, as onlookers pleaded for the officers to let the man breathe and to check his pulse. The policeman did not budge, nor did his assisting officers, moving only to threaten the onlookers who had to stay back. The limp man was finally taken to the hospital, where he was pronounced dead several hours later. At first, the 4 officers that were at the scene were placed only on paid leave. But quickly, the mayor of Minneapolis announced that they had been terminated. I wonder if the mayor of Georgia would have done the same thing so quickly. And yet, as of right now, when I'm recording this, the men have not been charged. I wonder if they are, if justice will be served at the men's trial. Explain something to me. How is it that this continues to happen again and again? How is it that public officials are elected who do not make it a top priority to end racism and violence? The physical lives of these 2 men have ended, but their voices still long to be heard. When I moved to Georgia, my liberal New England friends were surprised. Why would I go somewhere with so few fellow liberals? My response: why would I stay somewhere with so many fellow liberals? Now, to be sure, there is still much work to be done in Western Massachusetts, and I remind my friends of that on a regular basis. And there is definitely work to be done here in Georgia and across this entire country if America is to be truly America the Beautiful. This work begins with working to ensure that every voice is allowed to vote. The work is to ensure that we are all educated about the issues in our communities, and the work is to gather together, even virtually, and help make change. Our civic duty is to organize as a community that lifts up our values and Unitarian Universalist principles and becomes part of the local and national voice. If you call yourself a Unitarian Universalist, or are joining us today with a common mind, then we all agree that everyone has inherent worth and dignity, and every vote must count, and so we must awaken our awareness to the practices and laws that keep our fellow Americans documented and not yet documented, oppressed, and we must change these. To do any less is not fulfilling the call of this faith. When we throw up our hands and shake our heads at the radio and become complacent, we have lost. And this is not a time to lose. Our government is not running as it should. The values we hold dear are not being realized. We must get educated to understand how we got where we are and what to do to create a more just and sustainable future. To actually share the grace of life for all from sea to shining sea. Unitarian Universalists have always been engaged in the fight for justice, equity, and compassion. From abolition and women's suffrage to civil rights, immigrant rights, LGBTQ justice, climate justice, and disability justice, Unitarians and Universalists and Unitarian Universalists have answered the call to justice and democracy over and over. And it is time to rise up again and engage. There is an election just months away. Earlier this year, the Unitarian Universalist Association launched a campaign called UU the Vote. UU the Vote is organized as a nonpartisan faith initiative to engage ourselves and our neighbors, to educate ourselves and our communities, and to mobilize voters and rally around key ballot initiatives. Directly or indirectly, the issues so many of us care most deeply about, climate change, LGBTQ rights, immigration, racial justice, and more, they will be on the ballot in one way or another in 2020. As progressive people of faith, we can seize the opportunity that the current electoral cycle offers us to fight for our values, to counter voter suppression, to expand democracy, and engage in spiritually grounded, values-based issue conversations with other voters and in our communities. Now more than ever, we are on the threshold of an opportunity to change. Congregations in Georgia have already started to organize, and several key trainings have already taken place. I call on this Emerson community to join them and to join together to organize so we can make a difference in November and make a difference to the lives of those lost to violence, hate, and injustice. On Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, June 3rd, we will have our first Emerson UU the Vote meeting on Zoom. At that time, we will discuss how to organize ourselves and become part of Georgia UU the Vote, to become part of that initiative and the UUA initiative already happening, and ones that we may want to lead. UU the Vote is ultimately about engagement. How do we as citizens of this country engage in the politics of this country? How do we ensure that the values and principles that we live by are represented in our government? Unitarian Universalists may not all agree about theology and whether there is a God and what pronouns to use for them, or who offers grace in the form of sweeping plains and shining seas. But Unitarian Universalists do agree that an important part of our faith is how we engage in the world and how we are living in it. Civic engagement is not only a good idea, it is intimately woven into the fabric of our faith. Please join me. The order of service and this week's notebook have the link for our meeting on Wednesday. Together, we can make America beautiful, perhaps for the first time in a whole new way. Blessed be.
This is the talk, you know, this church, the quest for truth is in sight, the light, and service is its bread. Untitled Chapter. 1 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 Un
As our worship service comes to an end, we hope that you have felt nurtured in heart and in mind by our time together. We invite you to conclude your time of worship with us with one final act. As you are able, please affirm your support for the sustainability of this congregation and the ongoing ministries that we share through a monetary offering. When we give, we say yes to something that we value. We sincerely hope that you have found things of value in your time with us today and will return again and again to worship and join as a community working for positive change in the world. In order to make a contribution, please text the words gift or pledge to the number 678-553-9485. Thank you for all you do to make Emerson a truly beloved community.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world until we are together again.
Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for all who contributed to our service. I close with these words by Paul Shakespeare. As one person, I cannot change the world, but I can change the world of one person. Ahmaud Arbery should not have been killed. George Floyd should not have been killed. As one person, we may not be able to change the whole world alone, but I am confident we can change the world of one other person if we only try. And maybe from there, we can change the world. May you heed this call to try, to engage, and to live your values out into the world. Blessed be.